Hey, happy Sunday. This is PFG Live, the only podcast that offers finger sandwiches in the ready room made with pate de foie gras. We'll let you think about that for a while. Welcome aboard, everybody. Evils is here. Josh is here. Evils reports 22.2 degrees and 9.0 degrees somewhere. DBX in the White Plains reports winds are 310 at 10 knots, visibility 10 miles clear, temperature 17, dew point -04. Altimeter 29er. Tuck is in Buffalo, New York, reporting 53 degrees and cloudy in the Buffalo. Let's see, that's all the guys on Discord. We also have CJ Stevens in East Tennessee saying hello and reporting 62 degrees and partly sunny. Carl Tauber in the People's Republic of Rhode Island reports 63 degrees Fahrenheit, winds 13 miles an hour out of the north, and he's in his favorite third world country. Proteum Machining is here. Hi, Dylan. 54 degrees outside, 54 degrees, and 25% humidity in the shop in Tucson, Arizona. Kyle's here, 60 degrees Fahrenheit, slightly cloudy in Maple Shade, New Jersey. Welcome aboard, sir. Dale in the Great White North reports 1 degree science, and sunny. Welcome aboard, sir. Let's see. So we're having a problem. We're having a problem with YouTube, and I have no solution. We went through this last week. We thought we had everything figured out, and here we are again. So if you YouTube guys could give me a report and just let me know how things look for real, I could start ignoring these yellow alerts I'm getting from YouTube. So in Discord today, we have the Honorable Robin Renzetti. We have Josh, DBX, Evils, Dale, Lance, Carl Tauber, Tucker, Proteum Machining, Rod, AJF, Smith of All Trades, Prescott, and Snatchy Poo. And I'm just going to let it be Snatchy Poo. Josh says, some buffering, but not unbearable. Yeah, we don't understand it. And we're going to put our best people on it. So I want to say thank you to DBX, who came and visited me during a swing through the north of Maine, through New Hampshire, came down here, and we had a nice visit, him and his lovely bride. Thank you for visiting. It was a lot of fun. So that was a good time. Also, we are still collecting your ideas for the problem process. So if you go to pfg.gg/links, you'll see the problem process banner with Robin Renzetti and Tom Lipton, and there's a big red button. If you hit that big red button, you will get a Google form, and you could write out some interesting problem you want to see Robin and Tom solve live in real time. I'm waiting for more entries so that we can start picking from that pile. And if we get enough action on that, we'll make it a regular thing. It'll be a lot of fun. Unless Robin tells me to stop, in which case we'll just stop. We'll see how it goes. And CJ Stevens says YouTube is buffering every so often. So I'll try one more thing here in the YouTube category. We have it set for low latency. We can set it for high quality and set the audio, the video quality down a little bit and see what happens. I've got a green panel here, so my output is okay. Anyhow, busy couple of weeks. I hope you guys had a good 3-day weekend during the Veterans Day weekend. We did. I took some serious time off in addition to time in the shop, and that was very much welcome. So one of the things that hit me as I was thinking about shop stuff and businesses. So recently, I had a consulting. I have a consulting client who came to me to build a thing, and I can't talk about the thing just yet. And in doing so, I was going to make the parts here, but I decided that it was way better for me to outsource some of the stuff. So actually, most of this, everything but one part of this structure is going to be outsourced. So I contacted Dylan at Proteum Machining. And yes, this is a plug because it was a very good experience. I haven't even gotten the parts, and it was a good experience. And he had I said, okay, Dylan, I'm ready. We'll get online. We'll have a meeting. And he says, no. Go to the website, click the thing, fill out the form, drag and drop your files into the form, and you'll be in my system. So I did that, and I was really super impressed with the flow, the workflow, because he's worked out a system for getting incoming RFQs, requests for quotes, for issuing those quotes, and for making it really easy for the customer to then review the data and then hit the button that says, yep, go ahead, here's my credit card. And then he cranks out parts quickly, and they're shipped. And it's a magnificent process. So first of all, thank you, Dylan. We're in the middle of that process right now, and it's pretty cool. But the thing, it got me thinking about just the whole idea of having a recipe. Even if your business is in making a thing or performing a service, you start developing these recipes. And the recipe could be the process by which you take in information from your client. It could be the process by which you do manufacturing in your shop. But you should be, not everybody is, but you should be constantly tweaking it and tuning it and improving it and making it better to the point where it is the thing that differentiates you from the other guy, is your process. If you're a chef, the way you cook and the herbs and spices is the recipe that distinguishes you from the other guy. And that applies to a lot of things. So you probably know that I do antenna consulting. I've only been doing that for 25 years. And I'll have a problem come in, I'll meet with the client, and I will take them from their problem to a design solution that frequently they incorporate in their product. And the thing I deliver, the antenna design that I deliver, is not my product. My product is how I get to the antenna design. So one of the things that happens in that particular business is, from the beginning to the end, the client knows that we do not release the electromagnetic simulation files. It's like the source files. In the machining world, we would say it's the Fusion 360 files, right? With all the cam information. We don't release that. We're going to ship you your parts, but we're not shipping you, all the cam data. And some of the reasons you do that is obvious, right? You don't want somebody, buying parts from you and then taking the files and then handing it to somebody else to make it, because your business, your added value is inside those files. So I want you to think about, your recipes. And I thought about Robin Renzetti, because he got me started on, buy the high pressure lube and then add a little bit of, well, we're going to talk about all the magic lubricants today, and then make a little mix of that, and that's the perfect stuff. Again, that's an example of a recipe that you might choose to keep proprietary. So when you go through this, this process in your shop, and you might not be, your shop may be a hobby, fine, but your shop may be a business. The reason people come to you is because of your process, not because of your shop. I was talking to John Saunders. Actually, I was talking to him today, and if I gave you, a building and you filled it with every machine that John has, okay, would you have John's business at the end of that? And the answer is no, because he has a process. He has a process for getting customers. He has a process for moving parts through his shop. And if he could do something less expensive, if he could ship the same product out the door to satisfy a customer at less cost, but he could charge the same thing or maybe a teeny bit less than the other guys, then he's winning. He has a great business. One of the things that I kind of laugh at. Oh, first of all, before I say that, let me say welcome aboard to Micro. Get it? Micro Machinists. That's actually Adam Demuth. Welcome aboard, Adam. He's reporting in Strasburg, Ohio, 54 degrees and sunny. Welcome. We're talking about your neighbor. So I was flipping through Instagram, as one does, and I get an ad, and the ad is for this plaque removing toothpaste, and they're expounding on why their toothpaste is magnificent and why you should hit the shop now button and go buy their toothpaste. Well, in that they said our product is so good it's patented. So I said, oh, so their process. Do I print off all my ads? Yes. I print off every ad that I get online. I print off. I printed this off so I can get the patent number. And I wanted to see, okay, you guys have a patent, and it's part of your process of making and selling products is getting patents. Well, it turns out that I look at the patent, and it's not a patent. It's a patent application. And then I look up the patent application, and it says abandoned. So, yeah, not a great process. The problem with this recipe here or process is that they just gave me the patent number, and patent number means they're going to explain how I can make this in the patent. If they had a real patent, which, by the way, I'm not convinced they do yet. If they have a real patent, they have to. The law says another person has to be able to pick up the patent and make the invention. You're teaching it to the universe. In return for that, you get a 20-year monopoly. Now, the whole topic of patents is another thing. I'm not going to dive into it today. But if I could make a thing, here's a thing. This is a 6-inch straight edge that I made for a product, for a project. Yeah, Dale says, unless China rips it off. Well, yeah. So just as a quick diversion, China was not playing nicely with intellectual property for many years. And you may make the argument that that is still true. I will not undertake this debate. What I do know is that they want to have their stuff patented in the United States. So they're starting to play a lot nicer now than they were. Protium says, I had a friend who made small trinkets and said he never patented in the U.S. as it just showed China how to copy him. But he'd patent in China to avoid the copies. It's a strategy, okay? But here's my point, is that how many people here drink Coca-Cola? Does anybody drink Coca-Cola? I do not drink Coca-Cola, but yeah, you in the back, the guy in the green shirt. Okay. If I said to you, pull the patents for the Coca-Cola formula, you can't. And why is it that you can't do that? Why isn't that you can't turn the can of Coca-Cola around and see patented and a bunch of patent numbers? Because they don't patent it. It's a secret. It's called trade secret, capital T, capital S. So they have a recipe that they use to make a product, and it's a secret. If they patented it, they would have to teach you how to make it as a requirement. So what's their business? Their business is that recipe. In fact, I don't know if you know this, Coca-Cola does not ship soda to you. Like when you go to the supermarket and you pull that can of Coca-Cola off the shelf, it wasn't made by the Coca-Cola, the main company. They make a syrup according to their recipe. It's shipped out to subsidiaries, to other companies that then put it into cans and put it into bottles and put it on the shelves. And that's their business. So check it out. Start reading cans and stuff. But they have a recipe. Their recipe is their business. Okay? Ravioli, give me the formuloli. Formuloli. I like that. Formuloli. So what's your recipes that you use to deliver a value that you get paid for? And how do you treat those recipes? I'll tell you, I'll teach you. You can come and talk to me about antennas, for example, for hours. I teach courses on antennas, and what I don't teach is how I get to the answer for a client. Unless you're working for me, then you see that whole process. But I can give you every ingredient for the ravioli. I can put the flour out. I could put the tomatoes out. I could put the oregano out. I could put it all out there and then say, go ahead. And you can't make my recipe because you don't know my recipe. So my encouragement for you guys is, if you're not in a business, still identify what your recipes are. What are the things that make your work unique? And appreciate it. If you are in business, you have to identify it, put a system in for codifying it or recording it, improving it, and protecting it. If you haven't figured this out, a patent is not a way to protect it. I have a friend of mine who calls me up and he says he's one of the tradesmen that I use to help me around the house. I'm not going to get into details. I'll say he's an electrician. And he calls me and he says he wants to talk about patents. So he came over one day, and he's a nice guy and he's a friend, and I don't mind spending time helping him out. And I was ready to give him the what for on why he should absolutely not consider patents. Like, complete waste of time and money. And then he showed me his product, and I'm like, okay, this may be one of those cases where you should get a patent. But he had a cool recipe. So Evils asks a good question. He says, you can hire armed guards to protect the trade secret. You need more than armed guards, by the way. After 20 years, you can't even hire a lawyer to protect the patent. No, you don't understand. After 20 years, there is no patent. So a patent is a contract with the government that says you have a defensible, put an asterisk right there, you have a defensible monopoly on that invention for 20 years. After 20 years, it is part of the public knowledge. It is publicly disclosed for the benefit of all. That's the contract. That's what a patent is. By the way, patents go back to the Constitution of the United States, right? Patents are right in there. So By definition, if you have a patent, you're giving your information away. If you're not, then it's not a valid patent. CJ Stevens correctly points out that Dylan, Proteum Machining, also has a magnificent podcast called Within Tolerance. And it is an awesome podcast. He does a lot of great interviews with some pretty cool people that may or may not be actually here today. And Proteum says, you still have to be willing and able to defend your patent too. It is not inherent protection. Exactly correct. And I'm intentionally not taking the bait. We're going to talk about that another day. Dale also correctly says, unless the government deems it important to national security. I have to tell you the secret, okay? If you invent something that's important for national security and the government wants to classify it, which is fancy words for the government is going to take it and make it part of government-owned information. That's what classified information is. They have to pay you. It might be the best money you can ever make, okay, is inventing something that the government wants to classify. Just put that in the back of your head somewhere. So Adam says, quote, everything that can be invented has been invented. Charles H. Duell, Commissioner of U.S. Office of Patents, 1898. Why bother inventing? So I would encourage you to identify your recipes. Usually a patent is not what you should be thinking about. But knowing, executing, and making money on your recipes is something you should be thinking about. One of the things we're going to talk about today, check this out for a segue. One of the things we're going to talk about today is lubricants. And right in the front on the thumbnail today is one of our favorites. I would argue about the whole lubricant thing with this particular product, but it's WD-40, okay? And WD-40 is a trade secret recipe. Yet to this day, we use WD-40 by the tanker load, right? That is not a patented process. I mean, not a patented recipe. Because if it was patented, you should be able to go out and make WD-40. And you can't. And Kyle says it took them 39 times to get it right. Yes. And that's the same thing you should be doing. You should, you keep trying and trying. What do we talk about? We talk about P1. We talk about this a lot these days, don't we? You talk about P1, you get out there, you make a thing, and you see if you got close. Then you make the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. My son, Jared, came up today. He just 3D printed this. He's making a gaming mouse, okay? It's really cool. He's probably on P7, and he's making these little adjustments, and it's amazing what he's come up with. And that's what you have to do. So identify your recipes and figure out how you're going to A, derive benefit from them, and B, protect them. And only rarely, very rarely, should a patent even become a question. And I don't want to get into the patent thing, but I will say that there are some criteria, I think, after 25 years of doing this stuff, that a patent is required. And that's usually when you are ready, willing, and able to go to court. And if you don't know what that means, if you don't know what going to court to protect a patent means, I promise you that everything that came before that is cheap compared to that. Yeah, Dale got it. What was that, about $13 signs? I think so. Okay. So, one more thing. We've just got a little bit of homework to do, and then we're going to invite Mr. Robin Renzetti in to discuss lubricants, and we're just going to have a chat about that stuff. I wanted to share with you the latest results from the Dryness experiment. We have 45 days in. We have our 7 containers, one of which is the control, which is no container. And I'm here to report that there's no surprises this week. So we went 2 weeks since the last report, and nothing has changed rank or order or issued any surprises. The fun thing to note is that the item ranked 7, the no container item, actually went up in weight, okay, and then came back down because the weather got drier and it started drying out a little bit. And that's our completely saturated sample. The winning container is still these these aluminized Mylar bags. Some of our guys on Discord have found them in prepper sites because they're used for storage, long-term storage of foods, and dry goods like rice and grains and stuff. So those guys have discovered these bags. I was downstairs having breakfast, and my beautiful wife, Chandra, came over to me with an empty bag from Starbucks coffee, and guess what it is? It's aluminized Mylar. And the interesting thing is they had an oxygen absorber attached to the side of the inside of the bag, like it was part of the manufacturing process. It was quite interesting. But anyway, number 1 is our aluminized Mylar bag. It's amazing. It absorbed a grand total of 0.5 grams of weight increase over 45 days, and it is the clear winner. Number 2 is our standard U.S. Government issue 30 caliber ammo can. This is the standard ammo can. It looks like a toolbox. Amazingly good performance, but of course it's too small for a spool of filament, so it's just a reference point. Number 3 on our list is still Doug's 4-liter container. So this is another plastic container that Doug found. Interestingly, not as good is in position number 4 is Doug's 4-liter container with foil tape around it. So the scientists are debating as to why that one performed worse. I have an opinion. I think it has to do with the breathing of the container, and that it got a little constricted so that gas was forced into the container. That's my idea. Unix Carbide asks, do you have any data on how the bags affect the dryness of jokes in the podcast here? Yes, but it's classified. Moving on. In the 4th position is Doug's foil tape container. Number 5 is our Sterilite containers, which I am still repentant for having suggested in the first place. They're in the number 5 slot. It's like a screen door on a submarine. In the number 6 slot, the biggest surprise was our 5-gallon metal pails with the clamp-on lid that has the peripheral clamp and the compliant seal. They're absolutely terrible. We believe that the seal is not sealing, and upon inspection, it makes sense. And then finally is our control in slot number 7. So I am proposing, and I'll take feedback from the group, afterwards. You could let me know what you think. I'm going to terminate the experiment. I think we got out of it the data we needed. And I don't think we need to go any further. If anybody disagrees with me, let me know. But go get yourself some of these aluminized Mylar bags with the nice, heavy-duty zipper closure. I put a link at pfg.gg/links. It's a single Amazon link to the 2.5 gallon. A couple of weeks ago, they kind of ran out of stock, and the link pointed somewhere else. And now they're back in stock, and the link is pointing back to the normal spot. Protea Machining says, if anything, you have to repeat the experiment more than to keep it going. Excellent adherence to the principles of science, sir. Outstanding. But it also takes time. Hey, Test Room 2003 checks in. He says, hi, sorry for late to the party. It's 9 degrees science and very, very wet in Oostkapelle, Netherlands. Welcome aboard, sir. Okay, so that's the update on dryness. I think we covered everything. At this point, I'm going to turn on Discord audio. I'm going to click this here button and welcome aboard to Mr. Robin Renzetti. Robin, welcome.
Thank you.
So, are we going to talk about lubes? I think
that's what you said.
I think we need to. Yeah, well, sometimes you shouldn't, but today we should. So, it occurred to me that I have to have 25 different lubes in the shop. And I thought we would just bounce this around and encourage everybody on chat to just jump in. You could put the name of something you're using. And some of it, I don't know, some of it's not necessary. I'll pitch out, we'll start simple, right? And talk about, super simple stuff like our machines. I have a Bridgeport. I'm proud of admitting that. And I guess whey oil is in my Bridgeport. It's called whey oil number 2 from Hankstafers. And I like it. It's simple, and it's the only lube that I use in the wheys. And then over on the grinder, I have Vactrol mobile, Vactrol number 2. Am I getting the name right? And that's in the
Vactra, Vactra.
Vactra number 2. So that's in the grinder, and then in the Haas lathe, it's grease. So what do you have cooking in your shop?
I have a note on the lubes like that. Vactra 2 is is used everywhere.
Yeah.
But one thing I found is that Harrig sells their Harrig whey lube, and you'd say, well, it's close enough to Vactra 2. I should just use Vactra 2. It turns out that it is significantly better for the intended purpose, at least on the Harrig, than Vactra 2. There's something, do 2 things. Number one, on the Harrig grinder, it uses a sedimentary oil cleaning situation. It's a full constant circulation system, pumps oil up to the top of the column, drains down. What the drainage goes into a cup that takes it into the other surfaces, and then it just drains back into the central sump. But the pump is up high enough that you get a lot of sedimentary action, and they actually, part of the maintenance is to every once in a while clean the sump out and get rid of all the sedimentary junk. Mm-hmm. So one thing that it does is it drops out that material easier than Vactra, and Vactra is very sticky. But it's also a much lower coefficient of friction, whatever they've done to it. So it's one of those deals where the specialty oil that they call for actually is better than the generic. So it's not so much a sales pitch for that as it is that sometimes you wonder, if it's 30 weight oil, it's 30 weight oil. Well, there is some magic, I think, to some of the higher end types of oils.
And the whey oils, specifically whey oils, have a tackifier in them, right? That makes them a little sticky, so they don't go running off.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The test there is when
we got a list from Quentin. Go ahead. Finish what you were saying, bro.
The test there with your whey lube is to just between your fingers and do this, and you should get strings. You should actually pull webby strings between it. Yep. And that will happen with Vactra 2 and Vactra 4. And
so I was on the Hankstafers bandwagon for a while with coolants. I switched for other reasons, but I stuck with their whey oil 2 because it looked a lot cleaner than I think the Vactra number 1, I think was the one I was using. I don't quite remember, but I still use that in the vertical machining center. and it's a delightful product. It works great. No arguments there. Interesting point about the Harrig. What about do you do any additives, any special herbs and spices for whey oils?
No, not in the whey oils.
Okay.
One thing that I am anxious to try, since I identified that the Molly Coat G Rapid Plus as being the lowest coefficient of friction type of paste that's available, that adding that as a final step after the scraping lapping that we talked about, with using the very fine to make the peaks of your scraping mirrors. At that point, degrease it completely and just brush on a super thin layer. Just use the chamois leather or a brush or whatever, and just get a very fine layer on there and actually burnish that in. And I'm anxious to see what that does, because that the coefficient of friction at 0.05 is typically down in the realm of lubricated materials. That's pretty far down on the coefficient of friction scale, and that coefficient of friction of 0.05 is actually rated at press fit, which means it is that at a very high contact pressure.
Okay.
So I'm anxious to just see what that does. I think it was Stefan Gottsvetter that mentioned to me that the decals say that the reason that their oil will be black on a first oil change is because of them using moly disulfide powder on all the surfaces as a break-in lube, and then going from there.
Interesting. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
The other thing, when you said additive wise, my favorite up to this point, my favorite center lube for dead centers on cylindrical grinding is extreme pressure lube number 3.
Yep.
And mixed with hexagonal boron nitride powder, and that has worked extremely well. But now that I've identified the Molycoat P1042, which wasn't on my radar at all, that grease is, I don't know how many people have actually experienced it. It is, they call it like an adhesive grease. It really is. You put it on a surface, it is almost difficult to wipe off. It is extremely tenacious bond to stay on the material. And the best I can tell, it is 100% hexagonal boron nitride as its filler. So I'm anxious to see that. The other benefit is that it's very coolant tolerant, meaning it stands up to coolants and water and is not liquefied by them whatsoever. It's totally inert to all your coolants. So it may even be a better center lube than the CMD with the boron nitride, but I haven't had a chance to try it yet.
Hey, Evils is in the chat. You want to take a challenge of trying to capture all the different lubes we mentioned, and we'll publish it as a list? Evils is outstanding at pulling out the details. So that's what's the model number of that Molycoat?
Molycoat. The first one was G-Rapid Plus. That's the lowest coefficient of friction of those pastes. Okay. And the only thing that's less is the tungsten disulfide, which is down in the 0.03 range, but that Molycoat doesn't use that. Then the other one, which is actually specifically made for chucks and lubrication in machining environments, is P-1042.
Got it. And
another note is I had a hard time finding that until I went to, of all places, Element 14 Farnell, which is basically an electronic component supply house. They had the most extensive range of Molycoat products of anywhere I've ever seen. Sizes, containers, that's where I had to go to get the P1042. And on top of that, I thought, oh, wait a minute, it's coming from England. That can't be any good shipping wise. $9.95 shipping, and it came in 3 days. I ordered Saturday. It was here Tuesday from England for $9.95.
I'm not surprised it was fast. It is, after all, a lubricant.
That's true.
Okay. Well, so I did buy some of the powdered hexagonal boron nitride based on a recommendation from you from years ago, and also some of the tungsten disulfide. And these are additives. They're powders, and of course the high pressure number 3. Is that what it's called? High pressure number 3.
Extreme pressure lube number 3.
Extreme pressure lube number 3. So that's a toothpaste tube, which will last you, your entire natural life. I can't imagine too much of it.
One nuance here on that is in my spindle rebuild video, I mentioned that as being like, absolutely a must on installing bearings and things. It just makes everything go so well. There would be a temptation to say, well, the moly coat is just as good, but there's a property that the moly coat does not have that the CMD Extreme Pressure Lube number 3 does, and that's squeeze film damping. The Extreme Pressure Lube number 3 is not using any solid extreme pressure modifiers in there. There's no particulate matter in there. In extreme pressure, AP additives can be chemical, where they affect the surface of the asperities such that they form an oxide or something of that chemical. I don't know the details, but basically it's a chemical way of making the surface higher lubricity where the asperities touch in the boundary lubrication area. And that's where so CMD is using that method. It's a chemical EP extreme pressure thing. What I was going with the spindles is, when you're doing a spindle, there's the fact that the CMD's extreme pressure lube actually has some significant viscosity, whereas the oils that are in these greases are really just a carrier. They are not the lubricant. I mean, yes, they are lubricative, but they are not the real what's doing the work. Whereas the CMD is. And that squeeze film thing is where you might have, let's say you have a 50 millionths gap or something. Without the very high viscosity, when that goes to get squeezed, since the viscosity is so high, that can't squeeze out very quickly. And typically the pressures are cyclical and of such a frequency that they're never going to. So you're getting that squeeze film damping along with the super lubrication. So that's where I would say the moly coats are fine, and if you have a tight fit, that's great. But that's one area where you might want to stick with the CMD.
So just to summarize, CMD is not using any solids in it, and you're depending on the viscosity to keep it in place, basically. Whereas the moly coats are using particulates of molybdenum disulfide, and those particulates are providing the anti-friction properties.
Yeah. And looking at the sheets, which I had not done here till lately, I noticed that, as an example, the GN assembly paste, which I used before the G Rapid Plus, is molybdenum disulfide and graphite. The G Rapid Plus is molybdenum disulfide, graphite, and a white solid. So guess what the white solid is, right? So it's just that small amount of the white solid changing in the mixture. They don't tell you how much, obviously, but it's the addition of that white stuff that takes it down a whole from 0.1 to 0.05 on the coefficient of friction.
Is that the HBN? Do we think the white stuff is HBN?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what else it could be. I mean, the hexagonal boron nitride is basically called white graphite. It's not. I mean, it's just it's not, obviously, but it's what it's typically called at, because its behaviors are the same.
Yeah, it looks like for everybody listening, it looks like flour. I mean, it has the consistency of flour.
Very bright white flour. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the P1042 is, and that has the highest 4-ball scar test value, almost double what any of the other pastes do. And it is only the white solid. So that lets you know that the hexagonal boron nitride is an extremely high performance solid lubricant in that realm, because it almost doubled the 4-ball scar test compared on the other ones.
Where would you not want to use that? Where would it be contraindicated?
Okay, so I have a Northfield air chuck. They're ultra precision chucks that are very finely machined. It's a wedge actuation style chuck. Very close fitted lapped pieces, and it is lubed with a generic Molykote grease that is very, very fine. I'm pretty sure, just my short experience with the P1042, if I lube that with P1042, its draggy lubrication, high viscosity feel would probably make that chuck not behave very well.
Interesting.
It might, because the chuck's capable of very, very light gripping because it actuates very freely, but that would overwhelm it, I think, with a frictional drag.
Wow. So
now, as opposed to a big hydraulic chuck on a lathe where those forces are irrelevant, it's going to move it.
Right.
The Northfield chuck is air actuated and doesn't have a lot of oomph, and works over a relatively small range of light air pressure. So that's why it's good for that exact style of chuck, but only when it's got hydraulic actuation.
So to summarize, up to now, we have lots more to go, but you have the viscosity of the lubricant. We have the solids content of the lubricant, and of course, what the solid is. It could be HBN, it could be moly MO2, it could be the tungsten disulfide, and then you mentioned some tackiness. What do we call that? Do we have a name for that?
I don't know what those are. I don't know how. Like I said, I'm really not an expert on lubrication. It's just I dive in wherever it interests me, and I need to find something. But
I am not an expert.
Okay, just to clarify. So interesting. So we went from the ways are pretty straightforward. You talked about center lubes, the high pressure stuff. What are some of the really challenging places for lubricants? You mentioned, of course, the centers, but what else is a very challenging application where a highly engineered product is required?
Well, one example of fretting corrosion can be a problem where you've got very minute oscillatory motion between two surfaces, very short travel, and it can actually cause a rusty color. That's why it's called fretting corrosion. I'm sure many of us, if you've used a Cat 40 holder or something of that nature and been doing high load machining for a long cycle with that tool staying in, you take the tool holder out and you might have some areas where you see this kind of like, almost looks like rusty brown grease, and that is fretting corrosion going on. So there's an example of where on a highly loaded holder like that, a burnish and removal of the GN paste would probably stop the fretting corrosion, because that's exactly what they're for. The only thing is you have to be careful, because the coefficient of friction at high lows is so low that you could actually swell the spindle immensely more than normal because of that. Because the coefficient of friction is down, the drawbar force is, if you're not using facial contact Cat 40, and you can actually expand the spindle more than it's normally expanded.
Okay, let me see if I could restate that you have a tapered a spindle taper that's going to accept a tapered tool holder, and traditionally, you would grab that from the top and put a force upward to hold it into the spindle. And what you're saying is that if the lubrication is super good, that it can literally start pushing out the shape of the spindle due to the wedging action that was unexpected by the designer.
Right. And I'm not saying this is yielding. I'm saying this spindle's not yielding, but it might stretch it quite a bit more. The reason I'm so cautious on that, I think I might have mentioned it before about when I finished up my Pope spindle rebuild with the tapered ID roller bearing. Mm-hmm. And that's a 1 in 12 taper, which is extremely shallow. At a glance, you wouldn't even notice that it was tapered. And if you put that together dry, or even with just oil, you have to use a puller to get it off. You pull it up at all, it gets stuck on there, and it's just like any other, self-holding taper, it sticks. Well, I put the GN assembly paste on there and tried it, and I said, oh, that's good. The only problem is it doesn't stay in place. It follows the nut up on and follows it right back, which is phenomenal. I mean, it's hard to believe. Now, keep in mind, because of me reconditioning some of the race surfaces, I expanded that inner race about 2.5 thousandths of an inch. I'm not talking about some light, wimpy pressure here. I'm talking about serious pressure. And when I released the adjuster nut, it backed right off.
Sir,
the beauty of that was...
No, go ahead. Continue.
The beauty of that is it allowed me to add the typically used spacer between the shoulder and the back of the bearing, that you adjust the length of that and go up tight against it every adjustment. And that's what I did. But this let me do it in place simply by removing the nut, and the inner race and the roller just came right out without any problem at all. And that let me do that final adjustment on that to where it was perfect without any fight.
So can you have too much lubricity in an application like that?
Well, that would be an example if you did that without the spacer. Your location is purely controlled by that nut, and it's not doing what you would expect. It goes on and stays there. It's ready to unwind and do whatever it wants to because it's not gripping.
Wow.
And like my whole example with the using a Cat 40 holder, you notice I said burnish it on and wipe it off. Wipe it off meaning get rid of any loose, so that you literally only have what's on there, because you don't want it to be super slippery. You're just trying to prevent the fretting corrosion. And like I said, I would only do this on holders, when I some of my big face mills and things, and we're barking off a lot of material for like a whole day. You take the holder out, it's not like it's ruined or it's anything horrible. It's just you see that fretting corrosion going on. So I'm going to try that and see how that behaves.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Talk about, you posted to Instagram a short video on taking a chamois and using it as a burnisher for some of this material. Could you just talk about that a little bit? Was that the molybdenum?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it. The reason I did that is I also had heard about people saying burnishing in these type of lubricants, and when I looked, I forget the terminology. I used some kind of name for a type of leather, and then I looked it up. It meant chamois.
Okay.
But it was a completely different name. It was like, what? So, and one of the unique things I found about the chamois is that it is able to apply and remove it and leave like a nice film. So it's one of those things where it just seems like it's the reason they mention that is because people have tried and said, oh, you know what, this is the optimum thing for putting it on. Wow. So yeah, it works. It works just for people who didn't see it on Instagram. And this isn't an ideal shape. I was just trying out the
yeah.
It's just a piece of low carbon steel flattened off on the magic sanding plate. Super glue on the steel piece, activator spray on the chamois on the table, put this face down on the chamois, cut off the edges, and this just holds a nice layer of this material. Obviously, it'll get to where there's nothing in there to use, and you may want just a round button or whatever shape you need, piece of tubing if you're doing IDs, and it is amazing how well the chamois works.
So if I could just tie this back to what we were talking about before, you made a process, right? Everybody has sticks of steel. Everybody has CA glue. Everybody has a chamois in the back of their Volkswagen Bug. Everybody has the blue Smurf juice sitting on their lathe. But you put this process together and applied this, this thing to solve a problem, and it was the process that you invented. And I think that's cool.
Yeah. The other thing for these molybdenum greases is you need very little. All the excess you put on is just going to get wiped off anyhow. So you really just need to brush it on as super thin. Oil paint brushes, the shape that I like is these are called Brights, and in ox fibers, ox hairs, or synthetic ox hair. These are nice and stiff, so these let you push and burnish. You can get on this and push and bear down on this and have it burnish because the bristles are nice and stiff. So this is the reason I have these. These are new ones, small and large for both my two types, and I'll cut these off, put them in a 3D printed thing with the syringes, and I'll be good to go with using that stuff.
Now, I just want to point out this is ox hair, not Ox Tools hair.
Right. Yes.
Adam asks, does Tom Lipton have enough hair to make a brush? Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah.
And if he is welcome to come on the PFG Live for a rebuttal in this particular subject. Well, that's pretty cool. I love it. So I'm going to jump us around to cutting lubes. So one of my basic things in the shop is dark cutting oil. That's the complete technical specification. Dark cutting oil, which is a high sulfur oil. And I'll point out that the sulfur is important for the lubricity in the high pressure of the cut. But the problem is if you leave the dark cutting oil on a surface, it will oxidize and turn into let me get this right, sulfuric acid, basically, and cause a stain. So you have to use dark cutting oil for cutting and then clean up afterwards. What are some of your favorite cutting lubricants?
Tap Magic aluminum for aluminum. I like the vegetable oil sprays on the mill for things other than iron and ductile iron. They seem to work really well. Bow Lube I like. Mm-hmm. And Molly D I like. And probably our favorite tapping fluid is actually half Bow Lube, half Molly D. We use for that in general. Yeah. You can't help it, right? And then there's trying to think of the general
what color is it?
The well-known red and white container. I can go grab it, but it's evading me. Lately, I think a lot of things I don't remember.
Well, the good news is what I have found is you will tend to not remember what you don't remember, so that's good.
Right, there you go.
What about Anchor Lube? Have you ever used it?
I have. I just never could fall in love with Anchor Lube. There's nothing wrong with it. I see lots of people using it that love it, and I'm not going to say anything negative about it. Other than the water-based, I had some issues with it rusting on parts, and that could just be me not doing the things I should have been doing. But just not a fan.
So I have.
Like I said, not a thing wrong with it because
yeah. The one thing. So I bought a while back. Stan was running a sale on Anchor Lube. Get a big container and 2 little containers for 72 kopecks. So I bought that, and of course it's a lifetime supply. What I found cool about Anchor Lube in our kind of work is that if you're in a small shop and you're about to crank a tool into some steel, it won't smoke up because it's this, water-based stuff, and it works pretty good. And it cleans up nicely because it's this water. I think of it like soap and water. That's what it seems like to me. It's essentially soap and water. So it cleans up nice. It doesn't smoke. I think other people talk about using it for stainless. I know A-Bomb recently used it on some stuff. And in full disclosure, because I have to say this, they did contact me and they said, "Hey, Mr. Influencer, we want you to talk about Anchor Lube, and what can we get you, and can we send you something?" And I said, "Don't send me anything. I have a lifetime supply, and I like it for what I use it for, but it's not a panacea." Anyway, that shout out to Anchor Lube. It's a good product, but it is got a special little niche. I think it was designed for what Stan uses it for, which is putting holes in big electrical boxes and then walking away from it. Like you don't have to clean up.
Yeah,
and that's cool.
Yeah, ideal.
Yeah. Jeff says, Tap Magic Extra Thick works wonders on titanium. You can cut 256 threads with a generic tap pretty dependably with that. I have to agree. The Tap Magic Extra Thick, which is in this thumbnail picture, I bought, what was that, a squeezy pint container. It's pretty nice stuff, and it's not, dirty and messy and whatnot. Prescott says Pam is great for fly cutting aluminum. WD-40 and kerosene/diesel work well too. I have to confess, I like WD-40 on aluminum. I think it works great. Have you used it? Do you use it for anything?
WD-40 I use for lots of things, but I use Tap Magic Aluminum is my favorite on aluminum.
I have Tap Magic.
I realize a lot of people probably hate the smell of it, but yeah, it
does a good job.
Works very well.
So continuing on the topic of cutting lubes, Molly D. I did a little tiny lure lock, bottle, Molly
Squeeze
D.
bottle.
And what I found is you could put a drop of Molly D on steel. It will make the hole. It will tap the hole, and it will and chamfer it for you too. Molly D does all of that. Yeah, that's true.
Awesome.
And it stains everything. Molly D, it gets on your hands, your clothes. Why is that? Why does Molly D? Is it just because it has such a high particulate count? It seems to get everywhere.
It has a pretty high concentration of molybdenum disulfide in it.
Yeah.
And I find that I use it, like I said, I mix it with Bow Lube. I'm pretty sure the Tap Magic might be the regular that I'm thinking of, and put just a little bit of Bow Lube in there. It's basically as a solid extreme pressure additive in a small amount, because I find the amount that's in there seems to be right for maybe extreme, cases, but overkill. The amount of moly overkill for your generic tapping.
So if any of you, let's see who else put some stuff in here. Oh, by the way, I wanted to catch a hello to AB Shop. He says it's 5 degrees science and cold in Vicenza near Venice, Italy. Good evening. And ciao, Alberto. Thank you. Evil says, on the other end of the spectrum, what does light machine oil mean to you? So I use a DTE Light ISO 32 oil in the shop for general purpose. If it says oil and it doesn't say anything else, that's what I use. And it's used in the head of the Bridgeport. That's what it means to me when you say light machine oil is DTE 32. Do you have any generic oil?
My mind jumps to Velasite 10 or Velocite 6, which are spindle oils. Light machine oil, I'm thinking of sewing machine lubricant,
Yeah.
Down in that realm. And Velocite 10 is probably like that consistency.
And Evils also says it's whatever the sewing machine shop sells. So I also use I also use a light spindle oil in the spindle of the Bridgeport, and that's rated at 22. So is 32 and 22, those are ISO ratings, right?
I think.
Yeah. Adam says Castrol or LPS cutting wax will always have a place in the shop. Good for weird machine building stuff where you are hand tapping or drilling. Interesting. I don't think I've ever seen cutting wax.
Yep. It's also good for like if you're bandsawing aluminum and you don't have any other lube system, you can just gently go in with the wax stick right into get the teeth on there. And
yeah.
Johnson's 140 stick wax is, I think, was also the same thing. I'm
a little embarrassed. I actually do have the wax for the bandsaw. It's just that my bandsaw has been down for so long, I haven't used it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Dale also uses it. Adam says you can use it on surface grinder wheels. What? And Unix Carbide says it's also a dessert topping. Thank you, Unix. Grinder wheels? Wait, what? Stop. Hang on.
Grinding a chuck with Crisco, or grinding a chuck in with Crisco, or the wax on top as a lubricant to keep the wheel from loading when you don't have coolant.
So
I'd hate to grind a chuck without coolant, but
I've done the Crisco trick when I had my Harrig, but I smeared it on the chuck. But
absolutely on the chuck, not into the wheel.
Okay, I was getting a little.
Now I guess you could load the wheel up with it, but then you'd have some balance concerns. But other than that,
Adam loads the wheel, dude. I salute you, sir.
Okay,
I salute you. Loader of the wheel. Okay, we caught one that I was gonna miss, which is the waxes. Okay, I totally forgot about the waxes. Interesting.
Just for the record, I'm never going to contradict Adam when it comes to surface grinding, because he has immensely more vast experience of types of grinding and doing things on a surface grinder than me. So I'm always going to defer to him.
We're lucky to have him as a member of the community, and I too am happy to learn from him. And hearing you say that, Robin, is awesome. He says, "Not sure about that, Robin." That's all right. If we all get in a circle, we could just point to each other, and it just goes around.
That Mutual Admiration Society.
Yeah, that way nobody gets the blame. It's great. It's awesome.
Yeah.
What are we missing? What other lubes are there in the shop that we missed? Okay, here's the question. I'm going to start a controversy just before we wrap this up, because that's when you're supposed to start controversies. Are coolants lubricants? Go.
If you use a good coolant, everybody knows my favorite coolant is well, not everybody, but Houghton Hocut 795 MP. It's a synthetic coolant, but it has 15% mineral oil content. And what that means is, it's a synthetic coolant, but it acts on your machine as if you were running oil. So I've never, ever had rust issues on the grinder. I've shown things where I left stuff on the grinder chuck for like 3 weeks, swarf, grit, the whole works, which would be like a terrible no-no normally. Mm-hmm. Take everything off, pristine, not a single speck of rust or corrosion. And that 15% mineral oil is the kicker. So that's why I'm in love with that stuff. And I have never changed out coolant in my grinder or my farting from the day I used the first 5-gallon bucket that was a Try Me bucket. I've only added and never had it go bad. And of all things, the Harding coolant tank is not the friendliest environment for coolant. It's kind of enclosed and I've never had it go bad, even from having. I didn't even skim oil for the first 10 years on the Harding until I got, and still I could care less. It just does not go bad. So I'm a fan.
Kyle,
and no connection with them. Yeah.
Okay, that is a great recommendation. Kyle says bacon grease as a lube. Hey, listen, it'll smell good and it'll make your cholesterol go up. I don't believe that, by the way. That was just a joke. Dale says take care of your coolant and get a refractometer. Yes. Pixel says, I remember the smell of scraping the sludge out of our Hardinge's coolant tank. Adam says whale blubber. Whale blubber is good. Maybe we could all chip in and just get a whale, and then we could, and Dale says whale oil is what they used to use. So I'm a Qualichem guy. Hashtag not sponsored. I've been using Qualichem 251 C forever, and I also have never cleaned out the tank. Oh, we got more goodies coming. Now's the time, Robin. Let us have it.
These are just some of the things that might be off the radar.
Lanolube. You're upside down.
Lanolube. Yeah, here we go.
Oh,
Lanolube. It's basically pure lanolin from wool. This is an excellent gauging grease. You get things like gauging on aluminum parts or things, and your spherical contacts don't want to slide nicely, kind of picky. Just a little bit of this on your contacts can make things get real happy. Yeah, this is really handy stuff for gauging.
Pretty neat. Niogel.
Yeah, this is the stuff that makes your stages on your microscopes have that real slow, slimy, super smooth feel. It's from this grease.
Cool. Niogel.
And this one, Lubriplate DSES.
Yep.
This is a plastic friendly, which can be very important. The Kirk lead screws on my cross slide of my Harrig are told, do not lubricate these under any circumstances. Okay. And, except the problem is it squealed on the grinder. So I got this, and I actually asked the guy, and he said, don't tell anybody, but that stuff's okay. So toothbrush and put it on there, and my squeal problems have gone away forever. So handy for the type of things where they're telling you don't lube it because it's plastic.
So while you're on that topic, before you jump, under plastic friendly, there's a Molly coat. I think it's called. I should have it at my fingertips. 333 or something. But there's a plastic friendly Molly coat that I use on the 3D printers. So for lubing the 3D printer stuff. But go ahead. What was the next one?
And then this is the Diamond Nano Lube. So John Grimsmo sends this with his knives and things.
Oh yeah,
interesting stuff. It actually is. It works pretty well.
Do you know that he happened to deliver when he visited? He delivered some. I'm pulling it out here. It's in the box with the Norseman. I have to do this at least once. Hang on. Okay. Where is it? Yeah, here's the. So he's got his own bottles now. Let's see if you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's maple scented, and it really is. And that's a whole story, but I just had to throw that in. So okay, so John made it to the lubrication section. Let's see, what else are we missing here? There's got to be a few more we're missing. While we're on, before we run away too far from the, before we run away too far from the coolant thing, My thing with coolants is the water. And I insist that you should always use distilled water because things that do bad things are frequently from the water, not from the coolant. And I went through that. I used distilled water only, and I used my QualiChem, and I'm a happy camper, very happy camper. Go ahead.
And full disclosure, yes, that is one of the other things that I do with the coolant is I only use distilled water. So, so some of that lifelong aspect of it could be partially from that.
Yeah.
This is one from Tom Lipton, charcoal lighter fluid.
Yep.
This is a good super low viscosity lubricant for lapping or tweaking your viscosity of your lapping fluid. Like WD-40 is a little bit too thick. Mix it 50-50 with this, and you can get just the right place where you can feel your hydrodynamic float start to drop off. And so these are handy.
One of our guys asked me about lapping on one of the channels. Don't ask me where. I can't remember. But if he's listening, there's your answer. Because he was asking me about using garnet, and he was having slipstick issues with lapping stuff. And I think the answer is what you just showed, the charcoal lighter fluid.
Yeah, you got getting the viscosity to where it's not floating or having a fine enough grooving on your laps to keep it in check.
Yep.
So this is one that I think most people probably have not seen much of. This is dry film graphite lubricant. Now this is stuff that's meant to be, you clean the material real well and you paint this on. This is their super heaviest loaded version of it. And it is like the consistency of chocolate pudding.
Huh.
That's just like a loose chocolate pudding. That's how much is in this. And this is used in like grain bins and all kinds of agricultural stuff. You can put it on shovels, keeps them from rusting. But you can put a layer on like this that's like 20,000 thick when it dries. And it needs to cure for like 24 hours. But the reason I got this, well, it was in the Habitat Restore for like $10 instead of its normal, probably, I don't know, $80 for this can. And I had not been familiar with it, but I'm picturing this is going to be ideal on scroll chucks, where you don't want a lube that attracts the chips to stick at all, but you're going to get a super heavy bonded graphite lubrication of the teeth and scroll. And so this could be really an interesting item.
Fascinating. Thank you. That's awesome. Josh pointed out that it was Best Fleet, who's a member of our Discord, and it has, by the way, has come out as one of the mechanical designers on the Form 4 printer. Cool dude. And he asked in lapping earlier. Let's see. Did we miss anybody? Evil says he uses Aronix 6900 PTFE paste on his fridge drawer that squeaked. So none of what we mentioned had any PTFE in it. And PTFE is polytetrafluoroethylene. Did I get that right, Carl? Carl's my, where do you see that useful in the shop? PTFEs.
I have a spray that is like what you would think WD-40 would be if you were counting on it to be a lube. And it has actually made in Pennsylvania, Stoner Chemical. And it is a Teflon filled spray like that. And it's I'm not saying it's anything where I necessarily can tell that the Teflon's doing anything magical, but it's definitely a more lubricative product than WD-40. And I am a WD-40 fan, but for other purposes.
So Carl says I was correct on the pronunciation of PTFE. And Evil says, and I use pure silicone grease everywhere on my aquarium. Yeah, that makes sense. So WD-40 I have a long history with WD-40. And one of the things that WD-40 is awesome at is as an adhesive remover. if you ever had like duct tape or, some adhesive tape leave stuff behind, WD-40 is awesome for that.
Yep.
It is a terrible lubricant. It's great, cutting aluminum. It's great for a lot of things, but the thing that everybody thinks it's for, it's just not. It's terrible. Did we miss anything, Robin? At the very least, we gave everybody some food for thought, right?
Yeah. One thing on molybdenum pastes. Most all of them want to be put on clean metal. Do not mix them with other greases or oils. They need to get a bond to the clean metal surface. So if you throw them on top of oil, you might not get the performance you think.
Okay, that's good.
Because of that.
Hey, do you have your can of Smurf juice handy?
Yep.
Can you just show it? One of the guys, I threw out the term Smurf, blue Smurf juice, and one of the guys actually wanted to know what I was talking about. So here it is. It's Bostic Never Sees Blue Molly. No, go. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, there's a lag on my on the camera here.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the stuff. When I say blue Smurf juice, that's the stuff. That will turn everything in one city block around you blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's our. I think, Robin, you're responsible for probably 37% of their sales at this point.
Yeah. That actually, I actually checked to see what's different about that. That has nickel powder in it, so that's what is a little different about that than others. And where I used to say this, I'm a fan of lubricating collets. 5C collets and lathe or whatever. But I think the P1042 is going to supplant that because of its coolant proofness and holding up in that kind of environment.
Okay. Robin, thank you for sharing your wisdom and talking about lubricity. At the last minute, Evils comes in with Loctite. Hang on. Loctite high purity N5000 nickel-based anti-seize. So let's really quick touch on anti-seizes in general, because like I have the Molykote, the blue Smurf juice. That's technically an anti-seize. I've got a nickel anti-seize downstairs. I've got a copper anti-seize. Real quick, now anti-seizes are used generally for threaded stuff. Give us a couple of minutes on anti-seize in your shop.
My anti-seize typically would be the blue moly.
Yep.
I don't have any high, actual high, super high pressure things or high temperature. A lot of times the anti-seize things have to do with the temperature excursions where the materials that are in there are meant to withstand past the point where the oil-based parts of it completely are gone, charred away and done with. You're relying on the particulate fill and its lubricative properties. So that's the extent of my knowledge on that.
Yeah,
I
Dale
can't expound on that much more.
Dale at WidgetWorks chimed in because he's up in the oil fields, and he said that temperature handling is important, which is what you just brought up for anti-seizes, and that is a good point. But those are lubricants, and we use those in the shop. Let's see. There was one other thing. Carl triggered me on this one. Carl says, I think the important property of WD-40 is the perfume. So that caused me to think about Marvel Mystery Oil, which has this peppermint smell to it. And actually, it's a good oil. And I've used it on firearms, and I've used it on a bunch of other things, and it's a favorite. It's in my cabinet. Marvel Mystery Oil is another good one. Dale says in the oil field, they rely on the fact that the oil is going to burn off / wash off. And he's talking about using the correct anti-seize. Well, I think we did it. I don't want to go too far over. You guys are awesome. Kyle just posted a picture of WD-40 for men perfume. Nick says, if I remember right, Loctite warns copper anti-seize can make stainless crack. Wow. Well, we'll leave that for our scientists for next time. We'll get back to you on that. And Corrosion X for keeping rust off parts. I've heard of Corrosion X. I've never used any of their stuff. Hey, Robin, thanks so much. Either we've helped everybody consolidate their lubricant list, or everybody's going to double their lubricant list. I'm not sure which, but I appreciate you being here very much. And
no problem.
We'll catch you in the after party roundtable where the pâté de foie gras is going to be served. Thanks, sir. See you later.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you to Robin Renzetti for joining us to talk about lubricants. Evil says it definitely doubled his shopping list. And I have to go now and organize all of my lubricants. I think during my CNC cycles, I'm now going to be organizing my lubricants. Meanwhile, I want to say thank you to everybody for being here. It looks like we survived YouTube's ingestion difficulties. Maybe we need to get it some lubricant. We'll see you next week for another PFG Live. In the meantime, get flat and stay flat, and we'll see you soon.